My name is Nick Higgins, and I'm privileged to share with you guys today the journey over the last couple years for me, which I now refer to as the recalling on my life. Robert Alexander Long was a lumber baron from Kansas City who in 1921, at the advent of the Roaring Twenties, founded Longview, Washington, the first privately funded planned city of its size. And no secret to this audience that it's the place I'm very proud to call my home. Now, Mr. Long personally donated the funds and the land for several buildings when Longview was first built, and many of those buildings are still in operation today. And because of his role in the founding of Longview, he's always been a hero of mine. And a short while ago, although he's been dead since 1934, he taught me a very valuable lesson that radically changed my outlook on life forever. Now, I know that sounds a little clickbaity. Okay, like those web articles with the headlines, "My life was never the same, click here to find out why." Or the ones that are a little less subtle, like, "Only an idiot wouldn't click this link. Are you an idiot?" You always click them. Well, no. But clickbaitiness aside, it's absolutely true. And I want to share with you today the valuable lesson that this wonderful man taught me. But first, let me give you a little context. I grew up believing that I had a special calling on my life, that I was called to do significant things that would leave this world a better place. And I honestly, for the longest time, thought that this was a belief that was unique to me until I got a little bit older and I started reading books they had written about other people who were born around the same time that I was, some group of idealistic dreamers called millennials. Maybe you've heard of them. Apparently we all thought we were special, but I really did believe that. And so I set out on this journey to fulfill my perceived calling. And I spent about 11 years working in churches and nonprofits in a series of roles that honestly weren't the right fit for me. But because it was an opportunity to do good for a living, I continued to pursue them. And then by the time I was in my early 30s, I was frustrated, I was discouraged, I was burnt out. And that was right around the time that we were starting this MBA program. You see, although I was a professional do-gooder for all those years, something just didn't seem right. I mean, work is still work, and it's still frustrating, and yet I was finding that doing good for a living wasn't as fulfilling as I thought that it would be, or it wasn't fulfilling in the same way that I thought it would be. It felt like one of those chocolate Easter bunnies. You know, you get one and it's this big, and you go, "Oh yeah," and you bite into it, and it tastes really good, but inside, there's no substance. It's hollow. And so I was frustrated about that. Now I have the ability to look back and realize that I had false expectations for what that was going to be like. But at the time, I didn't realize that. And I had also made a mistake early on of paying too much attention to some of the headlines on certain outliers. To people like Blake McCoskey, the founder of Tom's Shoes, or church planners like Stephen Furtick or Mark Driscoll, these people who had built these amazing organizations that were doing these big things all over the world, and they did it all by the time that they were my age. And so I was falsely carrying around this sense of feeling like a failure because I hadn't done anything significant, and I was the same age they were. And I mean, are they smarter than I am? What am I doing wrong here? And then you add in the fact that the kind of nonprofit work that I was doing didn't pay very well. And so my young family was getting older, and our financial needs were changing. And so my wife and I made a decision at that point. We said, that's it. We were living up in Alaska. Let's just move home. Let's move back to Longview, the community that we've always loved. We've always wanted to end up there. And let's just raise our family. And in the context of doing that, we'll find ways in which that we can make a significant difference in our community, and then we'll figure out the rest of the world thing after that. But let's just start there. So we did, and it was good. It was a much healthier season for us, being back near friends and family and reconnecting. But inside, I was still struggling with trying to figure out and come to grips with what this perceived calling that I felt like I had and what it would look like, although maybe it would look a little differently than I originally anticipated, what it would look like to make a mark on this world from me. And that's about the time that I had my aha moment with Robert Long. See, I was standing in the middle of this park that's named after him, where there's this statue of him. And I must have looked like an idiot because I was standing there venting to a statue in the middle of town. This is right in the middle of the historic town site right there. It's a big roundabout, and everyone in town drives around it when you're going anywhere in town. And I'm standing there talking to a statue, venting my frustrations that I haven't done anything significant yet, and I'm wasting my life, blah, blah, blah. And then I noticed something that I'd never picked up on before. I started reading some of the words on the statue. And it said, founder of Longview, 1922, which I already knew. And it had the year of his death, 1934, which I also already knew. But for some reason, I never picked up on the year of his birth being 1850. And then my head exploded because it had never dawned on me that Robert Long was already 72 years old by the time he founded Longview, Washington. That means that the most significant thing that this guy did, the most significant thing that he's remembered for, planning a city, building a high school and donating it, building a library and donating it, building a hotel and donating it, giving funds so that the YMCA could be built, giving funds to two churches, two different church plants so that they could build churches in the community, building roads and subdividing his land so that his employees could buy homes instead of living in a lumber camp, and that they could raise their families together and form a community and worship together. The most significant thing that this guy ever did, his legacy, didn't even happen until he had already lived 86% of his life. 86%. And in that moment, I remembered something that I had heard a guy named Andy Stanley said. I flew to Georgia and I went to this conference. This was a few years before this even. And it was a conference geared for young leaders who were up and coming, emerging leaders. And there was 13,000 of us crammed in this little auditorium in Georgia, and we all had the same glasses and the same stupid haircut, and I had never felt less unique in my entire life. And I'll never forget, Andy Stanley looked out and he said to us, he said, guys, stop being so worried about making your mark on this world. Because you'll never know the most significant thing that you're going to do with your life until well after you've already done it. And even then, that's only if you're still around to enjoy it when it bears fruit. Now, for whatever reason, although I had heard that a few years prior, and it always was something that I thought, oh, wow, that's a really good thought. I should work on applying that. It never truly resonated with me the same way that it did when I was standing in R.A. Long Park, looking at that statue, viewing the physical expression of what that sentiment truly meant. And that was the beginning. That was the beginning of this MBA program. For me, it all kind of came right around that time. And that was the beginning of this process, this couple-year journey that I now refer to as the recalling of my life. You see, Robert Long never set out to build a city and touch a bunch of lives and have a statue built in his image and a town named after him and a high school and a park and honestly a whole bunch of other things in our town that are all named after him in some form or another. He never set out to do any of that. Honestly, he never even set out to be a lumber baron. That was just something he fell into because when he was young, he and his buddy were actually trying to sell hay, realized there's no money in hay, so they dismantled the barn that they were storing it in, sold all the wood and made a bunch of money off that, and they went, hey, sucks, let's sell wood instead. You see, Robert Long was simply a businessman. His goal was to prosper and to make money. But in so doing, he had opportunities to bless people. And every time an opportunity to do that came up, he took it. And when the opportunity came up for him to bless a whole bunch of people and attract top talent to his company by providing them a state-of-the-art community in which to live, he did that too. And the legacy still continues to this day. And so this recalling of my life, it goes like this. My goal is simply to make deposits in the lives of the people I come in contact with each and every single day. Now that's audacious and that's arrogant. And quite honestly, I still kind of suck at it. But that's my goal. Now, it might be a small deposit. Hopefully it's not a bad deposit. There's a few of those from time to time. but it's my goal nonetheless. I'm going to strive to touch lives on an individual level every chance that I get. And if I'm ever afforded the opportunity to build a city or to start the next Tom's Shoes, I'll jump all over that. You see, because this recalling is not about complacency. And it's not a call to stop dreaming or lose ambition or put your drive into neutral. It's far from that. It's simply a recalling to say that there is the opportunity for fulfillment to take place in my life around me every single day in the form of people. And it might not ever come as the result of the job that I'm getting paid to do, but business and our careers might just be the vehicle that we use in which to do that. And so it's absolutely imperative for me that I make deposits in the lives of other people. Because I just never know. It might just be that one of those deposits ends up being the most significant thing that I'll ever do with my life. And I truly hope that I'm still around to witness it if and when it bears fruit. Thank you.